right, so here's the next day for 30 days of Willow with Willow, and the topic that came up was about grays and species in general. Trying to teach people that when it comes to extraterrestrial contact, not to stereotype beings and not to make assumptions towards either benevolence or malevolence, either one. Just because a group is promoted as malicious does not mean that all of them are malicious, and just because a group is promoted as benevolent does not mean all of them are benevolent. It is up to you to use your heart space, to use your ability to question, to use your ability to feel energy and your sovereignty to figure out what the intentions are of the beings around you. When it comes to grays, a lot of them have been painted as malicious beings. Well, first of all, a lot of beings who people say are grays are actually not grays. They're zeta reticulans, they're all these other different beings that have gray skin, and they're just called grays because they're short, big heads, gray skin. That's not a gray. Most of them aren't grays. It was a long time before I truly met a gray. The malicious kind that people talk about, and let me be clear, they're not malicious. Not all of them. It's kind of like if we expanded into the universe during the 40s, and the Germans, Nazi Germany, went out and expanded into the universe. The only contact other beings would have would be with them, so they could determine that humanity was evil because those were the humans they met. But the thing is, not all Germans were evil. Not all of humanity is evil. Actually, it's just a small percentage that have malicious intentions. Most of humanity is benevolent and wants benevolence. So you have to look at it from that standpoint of beings have been coming to Earth and how many of them have come to Earth, and some of them have done some things that are not of the highest good, but that does not mean that the entirety of their species is malevolent. Now, there are some species that you have to be very careful with, and that is very true. You want to be very careful with them. And with the grays, I'm very adamant. I'm like, they're just be careful because there is a reason that some of these stories exist in the mythology. Ask questions, assert your sovereignty, build your protective team, work on spiritual protections, energetic protections, learning energetic law, and protecting yourself and understanding that you are sovereign and have choice in what happens with you. And then understanding too that when these beings come, some of them are in this, and this is where I think a lot of grays operate. There's benevolence and there's malevolence, and people want to think beings they're all benevolent or they're all malevolent. They don't think there's an in between a lot of times, and there's a gray middle, and the gray middle is kind of this space where ETs and other beings there, and even humans do this. They operate for their highest good, and they will do whatever is necessary for their highest good, even if it means going on a little, taking a path towards malevolence or taking a path towards benevolence and kind of going back and forth and sometimes doing malevolent things, sometimes doing benevolent things. It's for their benefit. So they're kind of stretching where they go because they don't care about anything else other than themselves and their highest good, their ascension, that sort of thing. So they straddle the line and walk back and forth, and some of these beings do that. And you'll meet beings that you feel, and it's like there really is no intention. There's no intention of benevolence or malevolence because they're just there to do what they have to do for themselves. It has nothing to do with you. So that's where you have to be aware and awake to the fact that you have spiritual strength, spiritual energy. They have to follow spiritual law, energetic law, but you have to be aware and know how to utilize all of that to protect yourself, but also to be on this awareness that the majority of beings out there are not malevolent. Even though people want to say, hey, an ET showed up and it did something bad. It's kind of like taking your cat to the veterinarian clinic. If you take your cat to the veterinarian clinic and you put it on a table, and to be clear, I think this is a Whitley Strieber metaphor that he used in his writing first, but you put it on the veterinarian table, the vet comes over and starts poking it, starts trying to help it with whatever issues going on. The cat freaks out. It's scared, it gets mad, it gets upset, it's freaking out, it doesn't want to go back ever again. It's the same with humanity. Most of these beings are here to help humans, even though it feels like sometimes you're being poked, prodded, all this other stuff. They're here to help. But the human doesn't understand that they're here to help for the highest good and benevolence of that human, to heal, to upgrade DNA, to help with conscious ascension, to do all these different things. So a lot of the stories come back where people remember things and they go, oh my God, it was the worst thing ever. And even for myself, for years, I couldn't watch anything regarding abduction stories because I was so afraid and terrified by the idea of being taken because of my experiences. And I no longer use that word, the A word, abduction. I use experiences because they were experiences. I wasn't taken and had malicious things done. It was all friends and family of mine, all pre-arranged to help my growth, and soul contracts and those types of things that a lot of people don't consider. That a lot of times you have soul contracts with these beings. Now, if anything is malevolent, or if you are to a space where you just don't like being, helped out by them, that it's too fearful, you assert your sovereignty and say, no more, I don't want this anymore, and they'll stop. It may not be the best decision because you may be stopping a benevolent being, or it may be a good decision if you're stopping a malevolent being, but you have the choice. It doesn't matter what their intentions are, it's your choice. It's your choice to assert yourself, to say, I'm no longer doing this, or to dissolve spiritual contracts, and there are things you can do to do that, and other things to clear the energy so that you're left alone. But it's your choice to be left alone. If you choose to be left alone, you will be left alone. But you have to assert it and learn those types of things. So when you're going on this journey, remember not to stereotype beings, not to judge them based on the race they look like or appear to look like, because if humans were judged on World War II Germans who had ill intent, then we'd all be judged as evil, basically. And that's not the case. It's the same thing with ETs and other interdimensionals, other beings. And don't judge them on their appearance. And I'm serious with this. Like, appearance means those who look human too. Don't just judge them as good because they look human. I have met human ETs who I can say clearly I do not trust, and my guides have been very clear, do not trust this group. So just because they look human doesn't mean they have benevolent intent, and just because they look like a gray doesn't mean they have malicious intent. It's a very big thing to understand and think about as you're going on this journey and as you're experiencing and waking up. Intent or likeness does not equal intent, and intent does not mean they're always benevolent or malevolent, or that they're not necessarily in the gray middle. And you also have the choice to get yourself out of situations and to tell things to leave you alone, because there are energetic laws, and those beings who understand energetic laws respect energetic laws, because there are things like karma. There are things like feedback loops of energy, and that if they do something against your will, there's karma that comes back on them through the universe. But if you're not asserting your will, if you're not asserting your sovereignty, if you have a weak energy field and you're letting these things happen, then they can happen, which is why we have to work on our sovereignty, work on protecting ourselves, healing ourselves, going into the inner work, and working on becoming the strongest energy field we can become, and asserting our sovereignty, asserting our will, telling people and beings what we want, what we're going to allow, speaking it, and not just accepting and letting things happen. So That's the kind of the messaging for today is just about, build your energetic field, understand you have the choice, you have sovereignty energetically, and beings will respect that. You may have to assert it to truly assert and command, but they will, once you do, they will leave you alone. uh, and to understand that not all beings of one race are malevolent. There are uh, leanings towards that polarity based on races and that type of thing, that certain beings do lean towards polarities of malevolence and others lean towards the polarity of benevolence, or in between. But just because that's the stereotype type of thing, the generalization, doesn't mean every single one is like that. So be very clear about that. Um, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching. Love you all. I'm grateful for each and every one of you.